Let's see here. So it varies wherever you go. There's the main city of Suva, which actually has about 250,000 people, last I heard. So a large percentage of the population lives there, but I have never actually served in Suva. Um, in Fiji, there's a lot of different lifestyles. A lot of where I served, they were farmers and didn't have much money to their name, but they had land which they had inherited, and they'd go out with their machetes and they'd especially be planting the starches. Their starch crops are kind of like potatoes. They have dalo and cassava and vundi and a couple other things that's super important to their diet. They eat starches and then they have either fresh greens or fish or something to go along with it. But the starches is what fills you up, gives you energy. So um, to get around, the buses are super cheap. A lot of where I went, it would cost you 70 Fijian cents to either get to town or go somewhere, which is like 40 American cents. So it's really cheap. You get on, they're super old and rickety and loud, and they bang all over the place, and there's no windows. And so if it's raining, you pull down these tarps from the sides and try to like not get splashed by too much mud. Um, there's taxis all over the place, but those are more expensive, and the people don't usually ride them too often unless they really need to. In Tuvalu, a lot of the people, there's not great farming there because it's just this little skinny island. It's only sand, so it's not that fertile. And a lot of the people either work at the government, or a lot of our members worked at the bank, the National Bank of Tuvalu. A lot of them had mopeds type scooters that they imported from Taiwan because they were cheap from Taiwan, and they'd be riding those all over the place. And the roads were so skinny, we only had one member that had a car, and the cars almost don't fit on the road. So people just ride around their scooters, and it's just a skinny road, and it's both places are super hot. I think Tuvalu is even hotter because it's more northern and closer to the equator. But you pretty much just sweat for 2 years, and you just accept it. And the fans you have in your apartments are what keep you going at nighttime. And but you get used to it and you really enjoy it. I loved when I first got there. Actually, it was winter time in Fiji, which was summertime here in America. And I got there and it was still really hot to me. But all the Fijians were saying how cold they were, and they were holding on blankets and stuff. And it was probably at least 70 degrees, and they were cold, and I thought they were crazy. And then by the end of my mission, 2 years later, it was winter time again, and I was sitting there holding blankets and stuff at night. And when I'd study in the morning, I'd still keep my blanket on me to try not to freeze, even though it was 75 degrees. I was so used to the temperature that it was still super cold to me. As elders, you wear skirts every day. They call it a suluvakatanga, and that's your dress. I didn't wear pants or socks for 2 years, and it was great. And some people think that's weird, but in the White Handbook it talks about professional conservative clothing is what you wear as missionaries, and that's what that is in Fiji. So a lot of the businessmen and stuff wear them every day, so you wear them every day. And if you ride a bike, good luck to you. I just had to wear bicycle shorts underneath if I did that because I flashed too many people, I think. So crime and safety. I remember my first night in Fiji. I was going out with a missionary, and he was still pretty young too. But we were walking in the streets of Suva, and it's pretty run down, and it was dark, and we were by ourselves on this road, and we're walking. And if I was in America and it looked like that scene, and it was that late at night, I would have been scared for my life. And in Fiji, I asked my companion I was with, I was like, "Hey, is this safe?" Because I didn't feel safe at the time. And he's like, "This isn't America, Elder Brower. Like, this is way safer than America." And I was shocked. It kind of took me back. And we were walking, and we see this Fijian guy, and he looks scary and kind of rough in the nighttime. And we see him, and he says hi to us, and we say hi back, and we keep walking. And every person we saw would say hi to us as we walked down the road at the nighttime. And I don't know, it's a different place, a different world, but I've never felt safer than I did in Fiji. My parents would email and say, "Are you okay?" and stuff, and said I feel a lot safer here than I do at home. So that's really nice. The safety's really good there. Wildlife-wise, there's not a lot of big animals or big game like we might imagine. There's no monkeys or like giraffes or anything running around. There's a ton of frogs, a lot of geckos that will just be everywhere and are everywhere. There's mongoose. Mongoose have killed a lot of like the bird population, I've heard also. So there's not a ton of beautiful exotic birds. because I guess a lot of them have been killed, and the frogs and all those are introduced also. So these introduced species have come in and killed a lot of what used to live in Fiji. The day-to-day life, depending on where you lived, it was really simple. And the men would go to work either on the farm or their day jobs. They would come home in the afternoon. A lot of them loved to play rugby in the evening. They would eat dinner together. They would hold their little lotu, or what they call their little church, in their house, where it's kind of like family home evening. So we'd imagine it in America as church members, where they'd get together and they'd either share a spiritual thought and have a prayer, and they'd go to sleep. And a lot of my areas didn't have electricity, so they'd be in bed by 7 or 8 in the evening, but they didn't have much money, they didn't have many materials, but they were happy. They had their family, and they had God. They knew that everything was okay, and that's all they needed. So same in Tuvalu. They'd get up and go to work. They have Tuvalu, the biggest and widest part of land I heard is about 200 meters, is the widest part of the island. And there's an airstrip there where the airplanes come in, and the evenings, a plane only comes in either 2 or 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and maybe Saturday. So all the rest of the week, the airstrip's used for playing volleyball, and people sleep on it. There's no fences there. It's just right in the middle of the island, and you can cross it all the time, and it's just, it's open and it's there, and you go to work, you play sports, you have your family, and you have God. That's all that matters. A little bit cultural difference just in their backgrounds, where they came from, and just the language difference too, because Tuvaluan's a lot closer to Samoan and Tongan than it is to Fijian. So both my companions there were Samoan, and they had a little background speaking language more similar to Tuvaluan, but just learning their way of life too. It's pretty similar, but just learn their language. And same story with both of them. If you learn the language, they love you, and you unlock the key to their hearts, and they're willing to listen to your message because you were willing to go there and willing to learn their language and where they come from. So they really appreciate that. So Methodist was the first church to go to both of them. Fiji's a lot more open and has a lot of other churches, but it was only recently in Tuvalu where another church was actually allowed. The Methodist church in Tuvalu is called the Ecclesia Ecclesiana Tuvalu, which is the Christian Church of Tuvalu, and it's the Methodist sect. And they were the Church of Tuvalu. They are the Church of Tuvalu, and no other church was allowed. And just recently, other churches have been allowed to go to the main island, and other outer islands, there's 9 islands there, and as missionaries, if we had gone to another outer island, we would have gotten kicked right off, because we weren't allowed to be there, we weren't allowed to proselyte there. So the Methodist Church is still incredibly strong in Tuvalu. The government and all of that is all intertwined with the Methodist Church. So it's a little bit harder in Tuvalu than it is in Fiji for the church. So.